Good morning and welcome to Juggernaut Capital Partners Inclusion Panel. Today we're here with a group of esteemed women to talk about creating and enhancing women's initiatives within the portfolio companies of Juggernaut Capital. I couldn't be more excited to serve on this panel today with all of you. In a moment, we'll be providing some introductions. I'm Tanya King. I'm an operating advisor with Juggernaut Capital, and I'll be serving as moderator today. And first, let me start with thanking these women for your involvement today and for your passion around this very important area. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Sharon Love. Sharon Love is CEO of TPN Commerce. We also have joining us today Vida Ruzin, SVP Client Services of BDS Solutions Group, and Annette Diabrio of Suda Healthcare, both a board member as well as a managing director and part of our original steering committee at Juggernaut Capital Partners. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
I want to start today with providing a little bit of a background of the history of this initiative at Juggernaut Capital Partners. As many of you know, we started this initiative as a women's leadership initiative last summer. We took the opportunity to acknowledge that we needed to do more in this area, and we wanted to help our portfolio companies, whether they had already had a very robust program within their company, like Annette, Vida, both of you have, or they're just starting one, which many of our companies have found themselves asking, what can you provide if we'd like to get an initiative like this, whether it's a women's initiative or a diversity and inclusion initiative, off the ground? So our purpose today is to be super practical and to have a conversation, because that's where this all starts. It starts with a conversation about how we can enable people to feel valued and included at all levels within an organization, and regardless of what their background is. I have to say that the steering committee we formed in summer of 2021, was very, I'll call it, engaged at ensuring we had the right conversations. And we found ourselves challenging whether or not a women's initiative was broad enough. And we all came to the conclusion that it just wasn't. We had to do more. And with the executive sponsorship of John Schulman, our founder and managing partner, and the managing directors of Juggernaut Capital Partners, we've expanded this women's leadership initiative to JCP Inclusion. And we're going to talk a lot today about what we offer for our portfolio companies as part of that. But let me pause. We have a lot to talk about. And this panel has been carefully selected because we have to have the conversation. And one of the most pivotal questions is, where do I start? And how do I do this? And we can put all kinds of resources out there, but we want to give you some really good expertise and experience today. So, without further ado, I want to provide a little bit more of an introduction to each of these fabulous ladies. First and foremost, Sharon. What an esteemed career. You are both a builder of an agency at TPN. You've created such an advisory and partnering role with many of the world's best clients, as well as your partners and colleagues. Your company has been recognized for decades as one of the top places to work by Cranes, so congratulations. Sharon and I met through a mutual colleague, Andy Restivo of Creative Channel Solutions, which was a recent acquisition of BDS Solutions Group, a former portfolio company of Juggernaut. And I told him what we were attempting to achieve here. How can we really give the expertise we need as a private equity firm supporting our portfolio companies and the people that serve those companies? And he said, I have the perfect woman for you. Her name is Sharon Love. She was pivotal in starting Omnicom's group of women's initiatives, and she's going to go into detail about that. So I will do you a disservice. This is the tip of the iceberg explaining your career and your accomplishments, and we're so excited to have you today. So with that, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your passion for these initiatives?
Yes, well, first of all, thank you so much, and thank Andy Restivo for connecting me with such an amazing group of women and people. I'm loving the Juggernaut group, and I'm feeling a part of it. So thank you for that. I have been with the agency that I have helped build, that's true, for 34 years. I started at 24, and it's been a long road. I've been at Omnicom for 21 of those 34 years, our holding company. I love my work. I love what I do. I love the clients we serve, and I also love my not work. I am happily married to my prom date from 1981. There was a 20-year gap between those two events. And we live in New York and Connecticut, and I love to travel. I'm a hiker, a meditator, a yogi, and the proud mom of a chocolate lab. I'm a dog, crazy dog person. And my passions and philanthropy and extra efforts, really my whole life since I was a teenager, have been focused on women and girls and the underserved, giving voice, amplifying, and finding ways to protect and empower those groups. So I've been on, as an adult, I've been on boards and in groups and committees, and I always find time for these undertakings because it's in me, and I believe as strong people, strong women, it is our human obligation to reach back and bring people forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I never want to follow Sharon again. I'd like to move.
Oh, well, Vida, you have accomplished so much in this area of women's initiatives in your involvement in your company, the various companies you've been involved in. So we'd love to hear more about that, more about you.
Sure. So I've been working in the retail space for 25, 26 years. And, also have the pleasure of working with Andy Restivo. I had the opportunity to work with him for 23 years. And, one of the things that I always loved about the company and the environment that he created is it was always people first. And so I'm a mother first. I'm married to a wonderful man. He's a fireman, and we have 2 awesome kids, and they're making me an empty nester right now, which is hard. But I have a very full life with friends and family. But I've been in this industry, again, for about 25 years, and it's a really male-driven industry that I've worked in. And so it was not uncommon for me to be the only female in a room. It was not uncommon for me to be the only clacker walking down the hall with my heels. And the women's leadership initiatives. There was a moment in my career where it really crystallized for me and made it really important for me to try to change the trajectory of how women operate in business. And it was, Andy had offered me an opportunity to move from kind of mid-level management to executive leadership. And I remember sitting in his office and just drilling him with questions on why he would want to put me in this position, because there were a lot of things I didn't know how to do. And at the same time, I had a colleague that happened to be male that was moving out of the electronics industry and into the technology space. And he told me he was moving into a new job. And he read me the resume, and my first question to him was, "Can you do that?" And he said, "I don't know, but they think I can."
There you go.
And at the end of the day, women struggle with that, and being in an environment that recognizes that and creates space for them to get secure in the next step is really important to me. So that's how I ended up here.
That's great. Thank you. And I can't wait to hear more about the details of I think you gave back quite significantly based on that experience with all your involvement. So we're going to hear a lot about that today, which I'm excited about. Okay, Annette, first of all, much appreciation to you as part of our steering committee and getting this initiative off the ground. And you and I go back years, although we've never met in the industry. And I know that at SUTA, you have been an integral part of a lot of initiatives supporting women. So, and we're grateful to have you here today to hear more about those, but maybe a little bit more about you.
Yeah, sure. So I've come over from the UK. SUTA Healthcare is a global business. We started it 27 years ago, and we've been a portfolio company of juggernauts for 7 years. That allowed us to build and grow. So I'm managing director at SUTA Healthcare and a board member of SUTA Group. And we really specialize in insights and strategy, marketing execution, and go-to-market for brands, consumer brands, started off in healthcare, now all sorts of consumer brands. And it's really, I think our passion is about driving the best results for the clients that we work with and making sure the brands and the messaging that goes out to the UK and countries around the world really resonate. So therefore we are reflecting the consumers who are purchasing our products. And I guess this is really important because I grew up, I'm an only child, I was told, I went to a convent school, I was told you could be anything, you could be a fighter pilot for the RAF, you could, that's what I really wanted to do actually, but my eyesight just wasn't good enough. And it wasn't, the sky's the limit. So, and as you go through your career, I started off in tobacco actually, in Philip Morris, and then turned tables and went to Pfizer. And all the way through, I felt it was really quite egalitarian. There weren't really any barriers. But then as you move further and further up, and you go to meetings with other businesses and other service providers or customers, it's suddenly, as you say, you're the only one in the room, and that was strange. And sometimes you just had to. I remember once I was in a meeting, and the guy just kept looking at our CEO, Edwin Bassand. He was talking to him. And you're sort of, I'm here. And in the end, I think I stood up and I actually walked over to him and sat next to him because he just wouldn't make eye contact. So there are, things that you go through really. But it's so important for us in our business. We have more women than men in our business. We want more women at every level, especially in the senior levels as well, to move up and really reflect our clients, reflect our customers. So that's why it's hugely important to me that you can do whatever you want to do. It really shouldn't matter who you are.
Right, that's great. Well, it's a nice segue. First of all, you are a fighter pilot in our steering committee.
In my head, I am.
You're very skilled in helping us. And we're going to talk a lot today about the competitive advantage that can be provided by being an inclusive environment and how we, on behalf of all of our companies, can accelerate that. And it's a nice segue to the why. Why do we do this? We did a lot of research last summer. The steering committee did, to orient ourselves around the why and helping people understand the time and the resources that we're investing in this. For me, it's a passion, so I would do it anyway because I know it's the right thing to do because I've watched the benefits that you can derive from it. But 60% of the world's grads right now, we were talking last night, are women entering the workforce. And between 75 to 80% of purchasing decisions and or influence of decisions is made by women. So as we're thinking about how we're selling and how we're marketing and how we're resonating commercially, this becomes very important to understand and appreciate. So let's get down to business, ladies. So Sharon, let's start with you. You have such a wealth of experience in this area. And like I said, we have companies that may be starting a program. We have companies that may want to accelerate a very robust program. If someone were to be starting a program, what should they be thinking about? What kind of steps should they be taking? What kind of conversations should they be having with their leadership team? Can you kind of walk us through when you started? All those type considerations. I know that's a loaded question with a lot of assets, but
no, it just takes me down a really mostly super positive memory lane and with a few bumps in the road. So I do have experience in this, and it goes way back. It goes back to 2008, and it's more the 2008 part's more of a cautionary tale, which you can learn a lot from. As we were talking earlier, there's some learning and failure, and I think we all have to be able to face that. But before I start, I just want to recognize something and that I've come to see in the short time that I've been connected with this group. And it's in and around the importance of sponsorship and allyship. And I'll talk about it again more, and the world is now finally talking about it more. But I read the email that your founder, John Schulman, sent to the organization about this initiative, and I was blown away by such respect and understanding and support from on high, and it was effortless. I believed him, and I know from talking to you all that we also have the same in Alex Deegan and Craig Hilly and Chuck Devani, and I know many more, and of course our friend Andy Aristivo exemplifies it. So my point, and I guess what blows me away is, from my perspective, with this kind of allyship and sponsorship, you are starting this initiative on the 50-yard line. Now let's switch to 2008, when I was at the back of the end zone. Okay, no, it's not true. But in 2008, I was one of a handful of female CEOs within Omnicom, and a fearless leader, a friend and mentor of both me and Vita, Janet Riccio, gathered 7 CEOs, female CEOs, together and said, we really need to create a women's leadership initiative. I mean, maybe not have been the language, but we need to amplify and raise up and acknowledge, because our holding company, like I think private equity, was pretty male dominated. And I had a similar coming up experience like you were describing, in that I didn't run into a lot of early days, I was pretty inclusive, not a lot of sexism in the workplace, until you do. and then it's this sort of terrible shock, and you're like, you just sort of can't believe it. So Janet brought us all together over a couple of long dinners. A few may have been a little wine soaked, because they needed to be, because you have to, you've got to get everything out there. And where we ended up was not creating what you all are doing. We felt we had to start with clear financial outcomes and how we were going to affect client business with what we were going to do as a women's group. And it was absolutely the wrong door in. But we didn't feel we didn't have that email from John Schulman, and so we thought, if we do it this way, and because we knew that would be an outcome. When you gather great women and great men together, there's great outcome. But we went in through the wrong door. So we said, we're going to create a consultancy, and we're going to call it G23. And that's, for everyone, that's the chromosome that makes us women. If you didn't know that, this is a terrible name for a group, by the way, but okay. And we got our name and faces in the New York Times, and we made a logo, and we got some clients, and we fielded this huge piece of research, which was fascinating, around the power of the female economy, to the point you were making, and about they make the purchase decisions, they have the money, and it was fascinating, and we used that to go out and get a few clients. Now this is not a bad business idea, but let's park this over here. We were not looking for a business idea. We were looking to create a women's initiative. So you have 7 CEOs, female CEOs, passionate, who have day jobs, who are now side hustling as a consultant. It's a disaster. So it didn't work. We had 2 good projects. We had to admit this was not what it's not what we came together for. So we regrouped, and we talked about we need to have the courage, and we need to have the conviction that we can create an initiative for women that will do all the things we want to do, empower and lift up, et cetera, and create career opportunities, and let the outcomes fall from that. So I want to read you, this is now, so we created Omni Women. That's where we are today. And this is, and it started small in New York, that's where we were, and then it immediately expanded out. It went across the country in different chapters. Vita was in the one in Los Angeles, and now it's across the world. This is from the website, so I'm going to read it. Omni Women, a global organization within Omnicom, is dedicated to promoting, networking, and career opportunities, as well as developing the female leaders of tomorrow. Women's professional progression is not a women's issue. It is a business imperative. Diverse, inclusive management teams and boards financially outperform those that are not. In today's economy, an inclusive workplace is a competitive advantage. And after all, the best investment we can make is in our human capital. And so that's where we ended up now. As a result of that, we attract the best female talent. We attract the best clients who demand and expect that kind of ethos is running through the company. So we got to the financial outcomes, we got to the client business, finally went into it through the right door. So I applaud you all for doing it the right way. And I do have, when I see how far advanced some of this group is, I don't know that my sort of real answer to your question about the steps you take are really necessarily necessary, but really, as you can hear from that tale, clear mission is super important, so you don't go in through the wrong door. Everyone has to be committed. This is such a big piece of it. If you don't have time, please don't raise your hand to lead, because this kind of initiative deserves the respect of commitment. And it's a very bad sign if you can't do it. It's not a bad sign to say you can't do it, but don't sign up if you can't. I talked about the good men. We need them.
Absolutely.
We need modeling of that kind of behavior, of how women and men should interact in the workplace, in life. We need the good men to do their part to show the rest of the men the right way to do it. So bravo to all of the good men. You're welcome. And really the last one is about listening and being flexible. So we need guardrails, we need missions, we need rules and regulations. You need a blueprint, but put it in pencil. Let this group form and meld the way it is meant to be, to give the group what it needs. And listen to your organization, listen to the new people coming into your organization, because they are going to have good ideas from the outside.
That's so incredibly important.
Yeah, it's just
listening to the people around you. I mean, I think about all of the companies that I've worked for or clients that I've worked with, and it's becoming a common question, right, from other companies outside, is what are you doing in the space?
Yep.
But it's incredible how different the need is depending on the environment that you live in. And so if you're not asking the right questions, if you're not staying bendy, it'll fail.
Bendy. I love
Yeah.
that word you gave me last night. I tried to work
yeah.
it in, but you have to stay bendy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not something people want to be a part of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is great practical advice. I know you're going to give us some specifics around the competitive advantage that it created,
Yes,
that you actually experienced firsthand, which I think people will be very interested in hearing more about. Vita and Annette, you both have implemented these initiatives at your companies. Are there practical tips, thoughts, considerations that you can provide? Where did you start? What worked? What didn't work?
For us, we started with what we believed were the facts. We looked at the organization, we looked at the mix of all the things you would think to look at. And then we got curious. We started asking a lot of questions. We looked at we ran surveys, we looked at that data, then we followed up on those surveys and we did focus groups. And then we tied it to a business reason. To your point, these initiatives aren't just about raising women up. They're about making companies better. And so helping people understand that and their responsibility to the organization to improve it is really important. And so that's where we started. And then, it rocketed off in a bunch of different directions that were really surprising, honestly, as we started really listening to the challenges of the organizations. It was fun.
Yeah. We implemented a survey. So really our initiative is led by Tracy Webster and her team at, we call it TMD, Talent Management and Development Group. And we've got people like Fran Brandt, who's contributed a lot to our portal here in the JCP Inclusion Initiative. So really great team. They really believe passionately in this whole area. And the key thing, 3 things for us really, was that we want to make sure that as a business we really reflect the world in which we operate. We want to make sure that our people feel respected and valued. And also, but just moving out from that, is that we work with partners who also understand this and have got,
It's so great.
and really are care about DE&I. So that's really being driven, legally as well. There are certain legal requirements that we have in the UK and in Europe. But also it is just, it's just become this key area that new people coming for interviews even ask about. I think I said to you, I have a recruiting for a PA position, and one of her questions back to us was, well, what's your DE&I policy? Mm-hmm. It's like, whoa, this is fantastic. And I was like, I love you so much. You are hired. This is such a great question, and just thinking further. But also when you go for pitches and you have an RFP, an RFI to do, and quite often now the question in that is, what is your strategy? What do you implement, along with things like, anti-bribery and anti-corruption, all those other things.
Right.
But this is also about what are you doing? So this has become part of the conversation. So actually it feels to us a bit strange if you don't if you're not involved in this and you're not working in it, and especially I think as this world has become so connected, and we're all we especially are dealing internationally, but other organizations within JCP will have international connections and realize that there are expectations. So I think that's why it's just really key.
I love the phrase reflecting the world in which we operate. The world in which we all operate, not only professionally, not only on behalf of our companies, but personally, is a very diverse world. And I like that because if we keep that in mind and we value that level of inclusion and reflection, I think we all win, right? Everybody wins. And these initiatives, at least with my experience with 2 global initiatives, the more involvement we have from people with diverse backgrounds, the better these initiatives become, right? And opening it up as best we can. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to have, of course, an ask at the end of our session today of all of those of you watching this and participating, because we want to be more inclusive. I mean, look at us here today. We have more work to do, and we know that. So we're excited about that opportunity. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Sometimes with the implementation of these type of initiatives, there are obstacles. There's challenges, there can be naysayers. There can be people who, anytime you're going through change, if you think about adapting to change, sometimes it's difficult. And it's different, and it can make people uncomfortable. Can you all talk a little bit about challenges or obstacles you've encountered with these type of initiatives, and maybe how you've overcome them or turned them into opportunities?
Sure. Do you want me? I mean, we through our survey, actually, I think if you think, actually, we're fine, we don't need this, but we didn't actually know the diversity in our business until we carried out our survey, and I'm sure you were the same as well, Viren. And we found, I think we have more women than men. We are 88% white, actually. We looked at sexual orientation, religious beliefs, and then we started asking the questions on what people think, how important is DE&I to you as an individual, and that's when it came up. I think 20% said it's the most important thing. That's high. That's 1 in 5 people said that. Clearly 20% is 1 in 5. And 64% said it's one of the most important. So that's 84% of the people. And we had 78% response rate on the overall survey. So that's a high number within the organization. So if you think you know things, do you know how your own people feel about this, actually? And then we asked various questions. So do you feel that it's a priority for the leaders of this business? And 80% said, yes, we do, but 20% didn't say that. So that shows you got some way to go. And then questions such as, do you feel respected? Do you feel that your views are valued? Do you feel that we have diverse opinions around the table? And those sort of answers came back in the 70s and 80s. So do we have a diverse culture and outlook? Yes. Have we got more to do? Absolutely. And that's what that tells us. And then it gives you that plan to move forward. But you've got to find out what your people think, what your teams think.
Yeah, and the surveys they're the starting point.
They're the
right?
start, yeah.
The conversations that come out of those surveys are pretty mind-blowing. And if you can get your organization to a place of vulnerability where they're sharing experiences, because a lot of people talk about these initiatives in these really formal words like bias and women's leadership, and you can run into people, especially men, that say, well, I'm not any of those things. I support women. I'm married. I have daughters. And it's the unintentionals that happen in an organization. I'll give you an example. We were having a conversation, in a group of very well-intentioned people about an opportunity that we had for a sales role that required a lot of travel. And there was a man and a woman up for the job, and somebody at the table said, well, both candidates have young kids, but I'll call her Jane. Jane has young kids, and she can't travel. She can't travel the way that we're going to need that role to travel. And that's well-intentioned, unintentional bias. That is making a decision for a woman based on a set of criteria that you think she can't meet without ever asking her the question. And so when you start operating or jumping off of these surveys and asking questions and trying to understand from your organization what are the sorts of things that bubble up in the organization that may be blockers, you'll be shocked at what you'll find, and you'll be shocked at the conversation that ensues and the behavior that changes when you have those conversations.
We hired a group 7 years ago, so a little bit ahead of, maybe a little bit ahead of our time, and put the agency through unconscious bias training. And so, we've now done it 5 times. And the first time we did it, I had to address the agency on video to first explain what unconscious bias was, to try to defang the word bias, so that people became immediately defensive if they didn't understand what it meant. And then we had the world's best moderator, who made it completely, I wouldn't say completely comfortable. There were definitely moments of discomfort, but there was no finger pointing. There was no accusation. There was no right or wrong. He just brought to life the fact that we are all we all have different experiences coming up. We all have a different aperture into the world in which we live. Neither of those two things are wrong or bad. But when you put people together that don't fully understand the other person's aperture, you're going to have situations like that. Well-intentioned, good people, but situations where people feel uncomfortable. So that was the first one, and the feedback we got from it, like to your point, was just, it just blew up. I had emails, it took me all weekend to read the emails, and almost every one of them said, please don't stop here. Keep going. This is just the tip of the iceberg. The conversation has to keep going. But as a result of doing that, I would say that our group found a different comfort level in hard conversations.
Yeah.
We were able to sit down and be vulnerable, and say things to each other that, and to me, Sharon, we know that you're a good leader, we know that you care about us, but yesterday you said this, or the week before you did this, and this is how it made me feel. This is how I received it through my aperture. And so it was incredibly, it was incredible growth moment for the agency, but we became better. We became a better agency. Clients want to work with people that are more woke. and we are, as a result of being honest with each other. So,
And interestingly, it's a nice unintended consequence of an initiative like this, because it's good for business to be able to talk more openly and freely in a comfortable, protected setting where people are cognizant of these considerations. You're gonna innovate better together. You're gonna dialogue. You're gonna collaborate. So,
and you're going to create messaging and products and connection to shoppers and to consumers who we need to reflect the marketplace we serve, and we need to be sure that we're being empathetic to them as well. So it is huge business implication, but it also creates a much more productive, harmonious, and positive work environment, which creates better work. It's a pretty virtuous circle.
And the world is turning. I mean, it just doesn't stop changing. So, we have employees from South Africa, from France, from Moldova, Canada, US. People are migrating. There are people moving between countries. The younger people coming through aren't seeing. I don't want someone to have the shock that I had of thinking I could do that and then walk into a meeting and someone doesn't look at you. They need to be, they feel, they know that their voice should be heard. It's always been heard. Why wouldn't it be heard? So we have a duty to acknowledge that and see that, and actually it's moving so quickly. And those are the people who are coming in and asking the questions. What are the expectations? One of the things on our survey, actually, it was clearly about let's have more training, maybe some of the, some of the managers need more training on unconscious bias, that word. But also somebody said, actually, what about the holidays and the cultural holidays that we have across different religions? And, you should acknowledge those and not schedule meetings because that's important to me. That's right. Why have you done that on that holy day, which isn't a Christian British holy day, but it is for me in my culture. So actually, these are things we need to put these calendar of dates together to make sure that we understand that and we understand you.
Things we wouldn't think of, right?
No.
Interestingly, Annette, you and I have talked about the U.S. Has a lot of laws and regulations around equal employment opportunity. they haven't mandated necessarily. I mean, we've had initiatives like affirmative action, et cetera. They haven't set guidelines in specificity. But Europe's a little different.
Yeah,
And
since 2010, actually.
Yeah, and progressive in this regard. And could you maybe highlight for us what Europe looks like in this regard? Because we should be paying attention.
Yes.
This is coming, and we're ahead of the game. To Sharon's point, we're at the 50-yard line, but I think we're going to be like sprinting to the 100. And I feel really fortunate in that regard based on the support we have per your comment and the sponsorship. But a different reason's coming.
It's been, we have to be accountable. We have to provide data as well. So that data is asked for by the Office of National Statistics, which is UK government. But the European Commission put a framework together in 2010, and it was really for equality and non-discrimination. And then the 27 member countries took that legislation and really implemented it more than the minimum that the EU had required. And so they've put into acts in their own countries things about racial equality, LGBTIQ, anti-racism plans, all sorts of things that are going on. And that, in the UK, that became the Equality Act in October 2010. So it is just part and parcel. You have to show that you're not discriminating in any shape or form. And, we're talking about sex, race, ability. So we talk now, especially during COVID, we're talking about mental impact. So people who have been impacted and how you're supporting them. And every company really has focused in on this, and how can we help people as they come through COVID? How have they reacted? How do we help them in the workplace? Also things like neurodiversity. It's important to not to bring in someone who's a clone of somebody else. It is bring in someone who's different, help them develop. So it is really, and some of the surveys that we have to fill in just ask those sort of questions, in all these different areas. So we're all, as well as the practical aspects of making sure that you have ramps to get people into the building and how they can move around the building. Can you get wheelchairs around and those sort of obvious things? And they're all, if anything is wrong, people soon complain and go to the press, and this is discrimination. This is so that gets pulled up a lot. It's not to say that it's perfect in any way, shape, or form, but it's there as a framework to guide people, companies. Yeah.
One of the most rewarding moments thus far with our initiative recently, Sharon mentioned John Schulman sent out a communication around our new JCP Inclusion broadening of our initiative, and the emails that came back showing us what some of our companies are doing were absolutely phenomenal. I mean, just incredible work. And one of the things, our steering committee is together today, and we'll be, actually, Sharon will be joining us as well based on her expertise. She's been so generous with her time. And one of the things we're going to be thinking about is how do we take all these best practices that we have in these portfolio companies and not only acknowledge them, but allow other companies to be rewarded by them, because it's phenomenal work. So I want to just spend a few minutes on, have any of you implemented a mentoring program? One question that often comes up is when people hear of an initiative starting, they say, can you mentor me? Can someone mentor me? Because I feel as though even though we have this initiative, I personally need help. As a woman or as a person of color, did any of you do mentorship programs, and if so, what's your experience been with those?
I'll start. Yes, but I will start by saying I didn't do it. The mentorship program at our agency is it's very strong, and it's something everybody wants to be a part of. You want to be a mentee and you want to be a mentor, because it's very well structured. They sort of took out all the pieces that make it hard to do, so time commitments and scheduling and kind of what the expectation is from the program itself. But it bubbled up through years ago, but bubbled up from the colleagues, the employees saying, we want this, we need this. And so, of course, we answered that call, which I just think in general, when that's the right way for some of these, a mentor program or any sort of ERG, it needs to come up from the group that wants the representation and wants the support, and then you need to support it and find your role in it. But we have great stories. A previous CFO of mine, he was a mentor to a young person in our organization probably 20 years ago, and they both are no longer at the agency, but they have kept their mentor-mentee relationship over 20 years because it was so important. And these happen to be two men, but I think it's critical to do it, because sometimes you find mentors. I have many mentors who don't know that don't know me, that have no idea that they're a mentor. But formalizing it and creating, I think, is super important.
Yeah, we don't have a formal kind of mentor program, but we look for people who are looking for that kind of guidance. If you think about how women move through their career, it looks more like this, right? You see men doing this, and you see women, going back to that, women need to be almost 100% certain they can do a job, and men need to be about 60% certain they can do a job. Those people looking for mentorship, and it's really critical that that's men and women, right?
Yeah.
Like the balance of that support in the organization, but really looking for those people who are curious and have questions and need guidance and
Yes.
want to have a sounding wall. And so we've handled it a little bit more informally, but
We're exactly
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
We don't have a formal mentoring program. Maybe we should. So I'm really interested in Sharon's experience. But it is about the line managers, and I think we've always felt, and that came out in the survey as well, that people have time to talk to you and help you and explain things and do that. And I think, and so we're like Vida, we're more ad hoc in that respect.
Great. One of the things that JCP has sponsored is a portal, which the steering committee and a certain member, Heidi Carney, has been just an incredible resource in helping us create. But the steering committee has done a phenomenal job populating this portal with resources, tools. We're going to have this panel available on that portal, as well as we're going to build this out into the future. And Annette, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about, so for our portfolio companies out there watching today, what do we have there that could be beneficial to them based on where they are in their journey to help them?
Sure. Oh, it's a fantastic thing, and just to endorse that, shout out to Heidi. She's incredible. The energy, she's really driven this and made it come to life. So, she's fabulous. The portal is full of articles, podcasts, reports, training materials. It's really a HR manager's dream portal. Wherever you are in this journey, there will be something in there that can help you. Some really practical tips and processes, as well as some inspirational talks from people like Indira Nooyi, the former CEO at PepsiCo, to Adam Grant, and it is a living, breathing thing. So we are looking for JCP portfolio companies to look at it, to please input and give us more information. And as time goes on, it should just keep changing, and it should keep being added to, so it really reflects the needs that companies have. But we have 4 main sections there. We have empowering women in the workplace, so you can just go down into the drop-down menus and see what you need. We have creating diverse and inclusive workplaces, performance and innovation, and stepping up, which is tools to get ahead. It's really been curated by the team, by this inclusion team. So really thoughtful pieces put in. It's not just anything that people can find, but it's things everyone in the team has contributed, and I think that's what makes it really important and special, because it's things that we know would help us.
That's great. Yes, we're very excited about this as a resource and as a tool.
It's impressive. It's very impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So please use it.
Yes,
Please use it.
yes, it's best in class. So as some companies are thinking about entering into more broad, inclusive initiatives, or perhaps creating a DEI program. You know, Annette's right. We're all competing for talent. We are all competing for talent. And their questions and their primary focus, particularly for underrepresented employees, what are you doing? What are you doing about this? How can I be successful? Yeah, it's a great question. And we all need to be in a position to more than adequately answer it. Can you tell us what companies should think about as they're broadening into more of a DEI initiative and programs in their environment?
Sure. The story I told earlier about G23 into Omni Women was women, and it was women of color and all women, not just it was all women, but and that's where it started. But I will give enormous shout out and props to my holding company, who have let that be the entree, let that be the first door opened. But they have gone on to create all the right kinds of ERGs for the very diverse employee group at Omnicom. So that's on a holding company level, more of a juggernaut level. In my agency, and I believe this to be true, and I think this was also true with Omnicom, those kinds of groups have to be created by the people, and I said this earlier, who want and need the representation. It is not a top-down mandate. So it needs top-down support and dollars and passion, and it desperately 100% needs that, but it can't start there. So I'll share a very personal story, but I think it's illustrative. In the aftermath of George Floyd's murder, like everyone, we all were just stunned and saddened and angered, and I didn't really know what to do. I felt a little bit rudderless as a white leader in this moment, and I knew I needed to help my black colleagues. I needed to help my entire agency try to make sense of this horrible thing that we all watched before our very eyes, and also what it started to uncover and unleash. So I reached out to this small group of black leaders in my agency and expressed that I need help and I want to say I'm sorry and I care about you and what do we do? And their bravery, it puts a lump in my throat. Their bravery and the trust they gave me in that moment to say to me, when I said I don't really know how to meet this moment, and they said, you don't. You don't, because you can't. And it started out as a series of meetings, like 2 and 3 times a week we would meet during the toughest, those terrible days of COVID when we were all just hunkering down at home. And sometimes they would tell me stories. They were so generous and so vulnerable to tell me these stories that took my breath away. I was in listening mode. I cried, they cried. It was this private, incredible awakening, I guess is the word I want to say. And then the conversation to shift to, how do we create something? How do we make something? It's the 4 of us and Sharon, but how do we make it the group bigger? So fast forward to right now, they created a group called Omni Black. We borrowed Omnicom's Omni, even though we're TPN. And so far so good. And Omnicom has its own bigger version of this. But we got this started. I think we were kind of one of the first ones doing this, formalizing this. And it is for the whole agency, some things, and some of the initiatives and things that they've created are just for the black employees. And everyone's okay with it because we talk about it, because we have this language. And they've created, started out with learning lunches. It's all about education, about black culture, and about the black experience for everyone to understand. So everyone got smarter, everyone got more sensitive, everyone got more connected to, again, how different these apertures that we come into this world with. Then it morphed into, very organically and almost pretty instantly, our clients started to be interested in it. They saw it on our website. We were talking about it. So we've done a couple, just as an example, we've done a couple of initiatives with our Hershey client, who is a marvelous group of people who want to do the right thing, and they also recognize some of their products over-index with the black community. So is our messaging right? Could it be better? Could it be more powerful? Everything from, is the voiceover on the commercial the right voice? So this group my group at TPN, OmniBlack, for our agency, has vetted a list of black creators and voiceover and talent, and so that we're just every day getting stronger as an agency on this topic, And again, not to be a broken record, but we came into it through the right door, which was taking care of this community within our agency, caring about the people, because then the good work and the good outcomes and the financial success of what that creates just comes organically and comes naturally. And I think that, back to communication, every one of us in our organization, we all want the same things. We want to be successful, we want to be valued, we want to be heard. But we have to be painfully, brutally honest that we are not all arriving here from the same circumstance. We are not, there's privilege and there's lack of privilege. And when we can get more comfortable talking about this as a group, we can get to much, much closer to justice for all at work and outside of work. And I just think it's exciting to be a leader in this moment, to get to play a part. And you have to play, and my part in Omni Black is at the back of the room in ally mode.
And I love that. That's the thing that I love about that story, right? Is that you are the top of the top in your organization, but you did not prescribe a solution to that. You went to your team and you asked a question, and then you let that question lead the action. And that's just such a powerful thing. And it's the cornerstone of success on an initiative like this.
It absolutely is, and that was so beautifully said. And I have to say, for Juggernaut Capital, we invest in amazing companies. And this initiative is here to support. It's not here to mandate. It's not here to regulate. It's not here to be overly burdensome. This is here as a tool and something our people and our companies can turn to. And you just softballed me the call to action perfectly, so I'm going to go for it here. As we mentioned, we still have work to do, and we need people. We need people who are passionate about this area, and we'd like to start subgroups within our DEI initiative of all sorts. And we know you're out there, and there are various ways you can go on the portal, and you can incorporate. You can add all your information in, right, to contact us on the face of our portal. If you're interested if you either have feedback or you have something you think would be valuable to the portal, or you yourself would like to lead. I love the fact that a CEO is sitting here saying, I was in the back seat, right? They were driving in essence and taking the accountability really to say, we haven't done enough and I want to do it. Because I, as a white female, am not going to be able to start a Black initiative. We talked about this last night. It's just not possible. I would love to, and I will be the biggest sponsor, but we need help. We need that vantage point. We need that experience. We need that dialogue to get it started. So thank you for that. And we hope after this panel and this conversation that we get a lot more involvement here. And I know we will. I know we will. So, wow, we've covered a lot of ground. I want to ask a quick question because I know we're probably over time, but boy, I'm so pleased with all of the substantive information. Real quickly, what advice would you give just to round out our conversation around aspiring women? What advice would you give to women aspiring to do more and be more?
Look around you and ask. Don't ask the question. If you think you don't know, ask somebody you think might. Shove through your self-doubt and your personal insecurities and that little internal voice in your head saying you can't, and find somebody who can flip that around for you, because you can.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's about confidence.
It's about confidence.
Yeah. So much is about confidence, and those are some of the conversations that I've had where, why don't you push? I couldn't do that. I couldn't, but you can. You've got to, and people need other people to believe in them as well, and to give them that encouragement.
Right. And I just think it's just change the channel on the self-talk in your head. You are the creator of your story, and most of the things that we worry about as women, as people, aren't even a worry. That we didn't do well, or this was misconceived, or I didn't say it the way it was the best way to say it. We think that. We're telling ourselves that. It's not even true. And I just think I think women unfortunately do it more than men. So it's change the story in your head. I'm confident. I was good at that. I deserve that. Yes, I'll take that job, Andy, because you know what? I'll learn what I don't know. Now, easier said than done, but that's the goal.
Yeah,
That's where you got to get.
Absolutely.
I recognize that I'm moderator here, but I do have a strong opinion on this one. And I was very fortunate because a lot of my career was spent with a female CEO who was a recognized leader in creating a women's initiative that subsequently became a more broadened diversity and inclusion initiative. And what I have found in my career is find the leaders, be they men, be they women.
Yep.
Find the leaders who will support you and see you for who you are, support you for who you are. And if you don't have a leader like that, right, seek initiatives on how to change that culture. Reach out, start them yourself, and find the leadership that will make you everything that you can be. And one of the best things I ever heard, I asked someone in an initiative that I was a part of, what have you learned about yourself from this initiative? I think I mentioned this in the first panel, and she said, until I got involved in this initiative, I did not know that I could do the things I'm doing today.
Wow.
And I said to myself, that's everything. That makes every minute of investment 100% worth it. That's the payback, right? So, ladies, thank you for your time today, for sharing your expertise and your experiences in this important area, for being a part of the Juggernaut family and extended family. And again, we hope that you have found this panel helpful. It is our goal to provide our companies with what they need in this regard and to raise the awareness and to provide whatever tools and resources we can. Please don't hesitate to reach out personally to me or to Sarah Shockley, who is an incredible member of our steering committee, and we must thank her profusely for all her help. This couldn't have happened without her and many others on the steering committee helping us. So, ladies, thank you.
Thank you. This was fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, lots of fun.